It was a typical evening in New York City, the kind where the city's pulse seemed to quicken as the sun set and the bright lights of Times Square flickered to life. Barron Trump, the quiet son of a famous family, found himself out for a casual walk, seeking a brief moment of normalcy away from the headlines and high society events that often surrounded him. The streets buzzed with the usual evening crowd, tourists snapping photos, locals heading home after work, and vendors calling out to passers-by. As Barron walked, lost in thought, he didn't expect his evening stroll to lead him to an encounter that would shift the course of his day. He was passing a street corner when a figure emerged from the shadows. A woman, huddled in worn layers of clothing, her face drawn from years of hardship. She was one of the countless homeless individuals who called the city's streets home, yet there was something about her that caught Barron's attention. Her eyes were tired but sharp, weathered by the harsh realities of life in the urban jungle. Yet they held a quiet strength. Without much fanfare, she approached Barron. Her steps were slow, almost hesitant, as though she wasn't sure if her request would be met with indifference or rejection. With a voice hoarse from the elements, she spoke. "Could you spare me $1?" she asked, her words simple yet laden with the weight of countless struggles. In New York, this was not an unusual request. Begging on the streets was part of daily life in the city, and many people had learned to tune out such pleas. But as Barron heard her voice, something about the moment felt different. It wasn't just the request. It was the way she looked at him, as if searching for something, more than just a handout. Barron stopped in his tracks, unsure of how to react. He hadn't expected this, especially not in such a casual setting. What would follow next would be far from ordinary. For a brief moment, time seemed to slow as Barron Trump's response cut through the noise of the bustling city. The people around him, who had been obliviously going about their evening, froze. Eyes turned to watch, curiosity piqued. Barron, the youngest son of one of the wealthiest families in the world, had just been asked for $1 by a homeless woman on a New York City street, a request that many others would dismiss with a wave or ignore altogether. But Barron didn't hesitate. Instead of brushing her off or handing her a small amount of change, he stopped, met her gaze directly, and spoke with a calm certainty. "Yes, of course I can help." The shock rippled through the crowd. People, already accustomed to seeing the rich and famous dismiss the realities of poverty, couldn't quite believe what they were witnessing. Barron's response wasn't just a simple yes, it was filled with sincerity. His words resonated with a quiet depth of understanding, a moment of empathy that transcended the usual transactions of charity. It was a connection, brief yet meaningful, between two people from entirely different worlds. The woman's eyes softened in response, and for a fleeting second, it was as though the harshness of the streets around them faded away. Barron didn't just reach into his pocket to hand over $1. He reached for something more intangible, a shared humanity. His gesture was not born out of obligation or duty, but from a place of true compassion. As he extended his hand, offering more than just money, a few bystanders murmured among themselves, still processing the rarity of such an interaction. This was not a typical encounter for Barron Trump. His public persona was shaped by his family's wealth and his own quiet, often reserved nature. Yet here he was, giving not just financially, but emotionally, in a way that left an impression on those who witnessed it. The woman, momentarily taken aback by the genuine kindness, nodded her thanks, her voice thick with gratitude. "God bless you," she whispered, her hands trembling slightly as she accepted the help. Barron nodded back, his expression steady but his eyes reflecting a deeper understanding of the moment. For those few seconds, the lines between social status and circumstance seemed to blur, as if a simple act of kindness had the power to level the playing field, if only for an instant. And as Barron walked away, the crowd around him still abuzz. With the unexpected exchange, began to realize that this wasn't about wealth or privilege. It was about recognizing the humanity in others, no matter their circumstances. The woman stood frozen for a moment, her eyes fixed on Barron as the weight of his response sank in. She hadn't expected this. She hadn't expected him to stop, to truly see her. A single dollar could be easily given, but the way Barron had offered it with such calm sincerity and empathy was something far more meaningful. Her emotions tangled. Pride in herself for receiving help not out of pity but out of respect, gratitude for his kindness, and perhaps a flicker of hope, something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope that maybe, just maybe, there was still compassion left in the world. The crowd, which had been momentarily frozen, began to shift again, though their eyes remained on the interaction that had just taken place. Barron's simple act had broken through the noise of the busy streets, providing a rare moment of connection in an often indifferent world. People began to murmur softly to one another, processing what they had just witnessed. It wasn't just a donation, it was an exchange of dignity, a brief but powerful reminder that people could still show compassion regardless of their circumstances. For Barron, it had been a natural response. He wasn't trying to make a statement or prove anything. He simply saw a person in need, and without hesitation chose to help in the way he knew best. It wasn't about wealth, it wasn't about fame, it was about being human. And that was the essence of what made his gesture so impactful. As Barron turned to continue his walk, the woman looked after him, still standing in place for a moment, her hand clutching the dollar. The cold city air seemed a little less harsh now. For the bystanders, the moment stayed with them long after the scene had passed. It was a quiet reminder that kindness is not bound by wealth or status. It is a force that lives in everyone, and it's always within reach, regardless of where we come from or what we have. In that small moment on a busy street in New York City, Barron Trump had given something far more valuable than money. He had given hope, he had given dignity, and he had reminded everyone that the most powerful form of wealth is the capacity to care for others. As the evening wore on, the story of Barron Trump's unexpected act of kindness began to spread like wildfire across social media and news outlets. The footage of the encounter, captured by a passerby, quickly made its way to Twitter, Instagram, and news channels. People were taken aback, not by Barron's wealth or his family name, but by his humanity. Many had assumed that someone from such a privileged background would merely brush past the request, perhaps offering a fleeting glance or a casual dismissal, as they had seen countless times before. But Barron's response shattered that expectation. In a moment when many would have simply ignored the plea, Barron had stopped, acknowledged the woman as a person, and responded with genuine empathy. His simple but profound gesture of offering more than just money was the kind of humanity that, in a world often marked by division and inequality, felt rare and refreshing. The reactions came fast and furious. Many praised Barron for his compassion, calling it inspiring and an example of the power of empathy. Social media posts filled with comments celebrating his kindness, with many users expressing admiration for someone in his position showing such care for someone struggling on the margins of society. It sparked a ripple effect, with people sharing the story and discussing the importance of recognizing the humanity in all people, regardless of their circumstances. Of course, as with any public moment involving someone as high-profile as Barron, speculation followed. Some wondered aloud if this was a one-off incident, an isolated act that might not be repeated. Others questioned whether the gesture had been a calculated move, an attempt to improve his public image. Yet despite the speculation, one thing was clear. Barron's behavior, his choice to stop and genuinely engage with a person in need, stood as a testament to something more powerful than any rumor or speculation: kindness. Regardless of the reasons behind the act, the impact it had was undeniable. For those who witnessed it firsthand and those who saw it through the lens of social media, it became a moment that transcended status, wealth, and family name. Barron Trump had, if only for a fleeting moment, shown the world that kindness was something everyone could give, no matter where they came from or how much they had. And so, the story continued to spread, a reminder that the simplest acts of kindness often have the most lasting effects. Barron's response wasn't just about giving $1. It was a statement. It showed that true kindness can come from anyone, no matter their background. The brief moment served as a reminder that small actions, like offering $1, can have a huge impact, especially when they come from a place of genuine care. In the end, Barron Trump's gesture left people reflecting on what it means to be human. It proved that no amount of wealth or fame can replace the value of a compassionate heart. This story is entirely fictional. If you enjoyed this content and want to hear more, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.